extra kudos to Selena Gomez, who I thought really was so refreshing in the role of Mabel. She also just had incredible coats this entire season. Those coats! I want all of them. It's Kristen, and we are deep diving into Only Murders in the Building Season 1 on Hulu. I'll be sharing my thoughts, exploring who killed Tim Kono, and discuss the mysteries that are opening up going into Season 2. Three strangers who share an obsession with true crime suddenly find themselves wrapped up in one after a grisly death occurs in their exclusive Upper West Side apartment building. The trio suspect murder and use their knowledge of true crime to investigate the truth, realizing the killer might be living among them. Consider subscribing if you like my videos, and drop down the comments and let me know your thoughts on Only Murders in the Building and what are some of your theories going into Season 2. There will be spoilers in this video, so let's get into it. So Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez star in this true crime thriller. They have such incredible chemistry together, the three of them. While we're on this murder mystery adventure, we also get to watch this trio form a really unique friendship and bond that can't easily be broken. And it was really nice to see, because as we dive into each of their backgrounds, you can tell that each of them are very lonely and they're missing that spark that they used to have. And so through their passion for true crime podcasts and their own journey of creating their own podcast and investigating this murder, they form a truly unique, although very unlikely, friendship. I also want to give extra kudos to Selena Gomez, who I thought really was so refreshing in the role of Mabel. This role sort of brought me back a little bit to her Wizards of Waverly Place days, where she played a character who was a little bit tougher, a little bit, more sarcastic, and I really enjoyed that role for her. She also just had incredible coats this entire season. Literally, this show should win awards just for the wardrobe alone. Those coats! I want all of them. The show also did an incredible job of just weaving all of these stories together. We get to meet everybody that lives in this big fancy apartment and see their motives and, why they might have done something. Little things like the color of the garbage bag handles could end up being clues that break this case, and I love seeing that. I think that the writing of the show is phenomenal. Everything really makes sense. They also had really great reveals of you thought you knew something and then it turned out that oh wait, this character does know this character. Oh, okay. Why are we hiding this? Let's explore that even further. And I think they did a really good job of giving everyone different motivations and reasons why they did things. They paid really loving tribute to true crime aficionados and true crime podcasts. I love when we get to see some of the Only Murders in the Building fans actually help out with the episode. I just thought that they did a really great job of bringing all of that together and just paying tribute to this genre that is so popular. There was also a lot of really just unique and beautiful artistic moments in the season. And of course, we have to talk about the episode where we follow the story from Theo's point of view, who is deaf, and they really did such unique things in terms of removing sound and having us follow the story from his point of view in just a very detailed way. I thought they did a really great job with that, and you could just tell that they put so much work and effort into this season to deliver something very unique, very fun to follow, something that will keep you guessing each week, that you just want to know, let me piece together all the things, we're making our own little murder mystery boards here to figure it out, which I absolutely love. What's also really cool is that we get 3 mysteries in this season. The first one is obviously who killed Tim Kono. In doing that investigation, they also end up inadvertently discovering who killed Zoe 10 years ago. And then at the end of this season, we get a whole new murder that happens that will kick off Season 2. Now let's get into the actual mysteries at hand. The first mystery is what happened to Zoe. So we find out that Mabel was part of this little crew, the Hardy Boys, where they would just kind of solve their own little mysteries, sneak around in people's apartments in the Arconia. One night on New Year's, her friend Zoe is killed, and they never really found out what happened. We find out that Theo and Zoe had a little connection. She took this ring that belonged to him and his father and this company that they run, and when he tried to get it back from her, he kind of was saying that, maybe down the line I could get you a ring, and she just thought that he was ridiculous. She talks about how she feels life is so boring and there's nothing exciting going on, nothing's worth anything. She ends up starting to push Theo. He kind of shoves her back a little bit just to stop her from pushing him, and she ends up falling from the roof and dying. Tim sees that, and Theo and his father end up bullying Tim into keeping the secret, threatening Mabel until he agrees to keep the secret, and then that's ultimately why Oscar goes to jail. And so now this secret has been kept for years and years, a decade really, and in that time Tim Kono has been trying to figure out how to take down the Demuses, Theo, his father, and so that's where this goes into our modern day story, which is who killed Tim Kono. So all of this whole story with the Demuses is revealed. It turns out they're grave robbers, they steal jewelry, they sell it on the black market through their company Angel, and Tim Kono was figuring all of this out. He was so close to discovering this. He even found that original emerald ring that Zoe had been wearing so many years ago. Then all of that was cut short due to his death, and it was ruled at first a suicide because it looked like he shot himself. But as we dive deeper into the story, there's all these different theories of who could it have been. Was it this neighbor? Was it that neighbor? If they hadn't found that additional toxicology report from the police officer, they would have just gone with the Demuses and thought they did all of this. And what we ultimately end up finding out, thanks to a weird clue in a sex toy box that turns out to not be a sex toy but actually a bassoon cleaner, Jan, Charles's new girlfriend, who seems so kind and so nice, ends up being the murderer. And what I thought was really interesting here was all of the information that Jan had revealed in the past on these dates with Charles and everything really added up to becoming her motive. She talked about always being second best and hating that. We also learned that she sort of has an MO. She likes relationships where the person is very lonely and she can kind of creep in, and she doesn't mind a big age difference. And we find out that her and Tim Kono were having this secret relationship. The reason that she killed Tim was because he had broken up with her and she was upset about it. And then she found that emerald ring and thought, okay, well, he has someone else. She offers him a drink and there's poison in that makes him unable to move and slowly kills him. And then she sets it up so that it looks like he killed himself with a gun. And so this is all wild because there's so many different storylines going on, you know, with the Demuses, with her, with his death. And so it's just like very convenient for Jan that all this kind of happened at once. And then she starts trying to pull the same situation on Charles, mainly I think because they started figuring out that she was the one who killed Tim. And so instead of poisoning him through a glass, she poisons him with his handkerchief, and then she tries to set up all the fireplaces to explode and basically burn down the whole building. But luckily, our true crime trio solve the case, even though Charles is literally like falling apart from being poisoned, and everything wraps up very neatly. There are some lingering loose threads that Mabel is worried about at the very end, but in the grand scheme of things, you know, they've solved everything. One loose end in particular is the police intentionally covering up the Tim Kono murder and not submitting the toxicology report. Could this lead to an even bigger scandal that includes police, government, or other higher levels of authority in the second season? But the story doesn't end there, because now we end this season with a third mystery, another death. Charles, Oliver, and Mabel are celebrating their win. Mabel goes down to get some more champagne, and at that time, Charles and Oliver get a text from a mysterious number telling them to get out of the building.
Get out of the building now! Exclamation point. Exclamation point.
Oh my god, oh my god. Help me, someone!
They are worried. They run downstairs to go get Mabel, and when they arrive at her apartment, her shirt's all full of blood, and there is a dead body wearing a tie-dye shirt that's been stabbed by one of her knitting needles. It turns out the person that's been murdered is Bunny, the building manager. And now Oliver, Mabel, and Charles are essentially being accused of murdering Bunny. They've been set up. Who did this? Let's break it down a little bit more. I did think it was interesting to see Bunny in that tie-dye sweatshirt, because at first you're like, oh, is this Oscar? And then you're like, okay, well, now that it's not, could this be someone else that's a fan of the show? And then when you find out it's Bunny, it's like, oh, interesting. They're throwing a little bit of a red herring there with that sweatshirt. And if you've been paying close attention for Easter eggs, you'll love the Sheep by Motionless Animator that explores clues in the title sequence of the show, including this hint of Bunny's death, with bunnies on the curtain and a mysterious shadowy figure. I want to talk more about who could have sent that text. First thought, maybe Oscar trying to help them. This is someone they don't have his number. Maybe they don't have Oscar's number. The cop that's been helping them, maybe this was their way of kind of being like, here, I'm trying to help you again, get out, but you know, maybe they don't have her number. Now let's talk about who could have actually committed this murder. Someone who clearly doesn't like this true crime trio and wants to make it look like they did it. Even Mabel says that after all of this, Bunny's the most hated person in the building now. Obviously, our true crime trio all have their own specific reasons. You know, they were being targeted by her in the building because of their podcast. She wanted them all out. So that could be reason alone for why someone set them up, because they obviously had motive. So I feel like there are a lot of people that could have killed her. My first thought was, what if it is Tina Fey's character, Cinda Canning, who is a big podcast host, obviously, you know, very established and successful, and who honestly kind of seems like she would do anything to get the right story. I mean, we even see her at the very end of this season kind of yelling at her assistant, being like, I came up with this idea, okay? I came up with this idea, which was an idea that the assistant had. Especially now that she's trying to make a spin-off podcast of Only Murders in the Building called Only Murderers in the Building. Maybe this is something that she set up because she liked that idea so much. It also makes you wonder, who knows Mabel enough to know that her go-to weapon of choice would be her knitting needles? What about Oscar? I mean, she already went for him with that knitting needle when she didn't know who was behind her. Could that be a way of hinting that maybe it's him? This is a little bit of a reach, but maybe before Jan was caught, she set this up so that she could, you know, keep tormenting this trio. There's Sting. I think there's a lot of people that kind of could potentially have it out for this trio. Or, you know, maybe they're going to be setting up a brand new killer for the next season. So going into the second season, I feel like we're going to really be following this interesting story that's kind of the opposite of this season. This season, we're trying to figure out who murdered Tim Kono. And now the second season is going to be more about how can we prove that we did not do this, as well as trying to figure out who actually killed Bunny. So I think that that's going to be really interesting. I'm curious, are they still going to be actually doing a podcast, potentially from jail, or are we going to be following this in a little bit of a different way? Maybe we'll actually be following the second season from the perspective of Cinda Canning's Only Murderers in the Building podcast, which would be interesting. But I'm very intrigued by Only Murders in the Building. I think they did a really phenomenal job with this show, and I cannot wait to see how they continue this story in season 2. Obviously, there are so many theories and places we can go when it comes to dissecting the show, so I wanted to let you guys know I have a Patreon account, patreon.com/kmalzo, where you can join and get more access to me and to a new Discord that I created that will allow us to chat in real time about our theories and thoughts on TV shows and movies. So if you want to talk to me more one-on-one outside of just the comment section, make sure to subscribe to my Patreon and we'll chat there. If you guys like this one, you can check out more of my videos right over here, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.